From the world of politics to the world of business, this is Balance of Power. Live from Washington, D.C.
From Bloomberg's Washington, D.C. studios to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, welcome to Balance of Power. Alongside Joe Matthew, I'm Kaylee Lyons.
DeepSeek sinks the market and prompts new questions about Washington's approach to AI. We'll have the latest from Bloomberg News with insights from Michelle Giuda from the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue.
House Republicans gather at Donald Trump's golf club in Miami to plan a path for reconciliation. We'll talk taxes and tariffs and the role Democrats will play with Congresswoman Gwen Moore of Wisconsin.
And the Senate poised to confirm Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary just days after Pete Hegseth was cleared as Defense Secretary. Some of Trump's most controversial cabinet picks have hearings later this week, as we'll discuss with our signature political panel. Thanks for being with us here on the Monday edition of Balance of Power. Already a busy week at hand. That's just the world we're in here, Kaylee. And we're going to be hearing likely from Donald Trump before this hour is out. Of course, it's the big GOP House retreat that's taking place at Doral. Maybe we'll get a way forward.
Yeah, and we'll see when the president speaks. We'll, of course, bring you his remarks live. And I do wonder whether or not we're going to actually get a comment from the president on what happened in financial markets today, knowing he does like to use the stock market as a barometer. And it wasn't a great one if you were long equities and technology stocks in particular. Nvidia losing nearly $600 billion in market cap today alone because of concern over DeepSeek.
Remarkable declines in big tech across the board with very few exceptions like Apple. Just look at some of the charts from today. This was clearly something that was not well received in the markets. And we start right there with the escalating global race over AI technology and the cost-efficient Chinese startup we already mentioned, DeepSeek, now a household name, that sent U.S. stocks tumbling. It caused a massive rout in both U.S. and European tech industries, led again by Nvidia, as we're mentioning here. The company down 17% today, erasing some $589 billion in value. Joining us now with more on this, Bloomberg Economics chief economist Tom Orlick. Tom, it's great to have you. Where did this company come from, and is this in fact the game changer that some on the street think it is?
Well, it's great to be here, Joe, and certainly the reaction in the markets today does suggest this could be a game changer. I think concern here in the United States is based on three factors. Firstly, DeepSeek appears to have got close to the frontier of AI using much less advanced chips than other AI companies. And what that suggests is that perhaps demand for Nvidia's AI chips in the years to come isn't going to be quite as intense as investors expected. That's why we've seen that huge drop in the Nvidia share price. Second concern, well, the US tech champions, Microsoft, Facebook, and others, are promising to spend tens of billions of dollars to scale their AI efforts. But here's a Chinese tech startup that appears to have got to the leading edge of AI capabilities with a much smaller spend. And that raises the alarming prospect that perhaps the US firms are getting it wrong. Perhaps all of this capex they're promising isn't going to give them dominance, but rather waste shareholders' money. And then the third concern, and this is a kind of geopolitical concern, the Biden administration introduced sweeping controls on exports to try and block China's access to advanced AI chips. But here's a Chinese startup which appears to have managed to skirt those controls and get to the AI frontier. And that raises the prospect that perhaps those export controls, well, perhaps they aren't very effective.
Well, so is that what's next here, Tom? Tighter export restrictions, perhaps more tariffs as well?
So the Biden administration's parting gift to the Trump administration was something called the AI diffusion rule. Even stricter controls on who can sell advanced AI chips to who. The tech industry hates it. They think it's draconian. They think it's government overreach. There's an intense debate underway between tech champions, and we saw, of course, at the inauguration that those tech champions have got a seat at the table in the Trump White House, and they would much prefer that AI diffusion rule to be watered down. and the China hawks. Of course, the China hawks present in the Trump administration as well, and they would like that AI diffusion rule to be kept in place, maybe even tightened further. This latest news with DeepSeek, it's going to fuel that argument. It's going to provide ammunition to both sides.
All right, Tom Orlick of Bloomberg Economics, thank you so much. Now, a sudden trade war began and ended over the weekend with President Trump threatening tariffs on Colombia after a dispute over deported migrants, then quickly reversing course just hours later. The White House released a statement that the country, Colombia, agreed to, quote, the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal aliens from Colombia returned from the United States, including on U.S. military aircraft without limitation or delay. Joining us now for more is Bloomberg's Iain Marlow. So, Iain, it was a short-lived saga, but a saga nonetheless. What did we learn about the way in which Donald Trump intends to use tariffs as leverage even for allies?
I think he'll use them on a Sunday, even if no one's at work. He'll use them, surprisingly and quickly, threaten them extremely, sweeping measures extremely fast. And he'll pull them back if you give him and deliver him the deal that he wants. So I think there's the specific Colombia question here where it's sort of core to, they're core to the migrant debate that Trump has pledged to solve here, right? So they got in the middle of a kind of core electoral promise from Trump, so that's probably maybe not wise on their part. But the other thing here is the broader issue of Trump being willing to use kind of shock and awe measures really quickly, pulling them back really quickly, and that's just injected a ton of uncertainty into the sort of global trade arena right now. Will he do this to Europe? He's already threatened it to Canada and Mexico. He's obviously lobbed tariff threats at China. So this is kind of giving people an early indication of what Trump 2.0 might be like on the trade front. And I think that's why it's sort of rattled a few people.
Well, it's incredible to see the speed with which this all transpired. To both of your points, it was like Gilligan's Island, a 3-hour tour. Did he just prove that it is, in fact, a very effective way at waging geopolitics?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting debate. I think a lot of people right now are trying to get on Trump's good side. You've seen a lot of early investment pledges, both from companies and from countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, pledging $600 billion. It's effective to some degree. I think some people are wondering how long-lasting it will be. Is this a durable strategy that will last over the course of 4 years, given people have sort of already figured it out in the first 2 weeks? It's not clear. So I think, but it's kind of a sign of things to come. And as we see in this case, it can be very effective very quickly.
Yeah, great to have you back at the table. Iain Marlow reporting for Bloomberg. Thank you so much. Next, House Republicans are gathered at President Trump's Doral Golf Club in Florida to work through their agenda for the 119th Congress. For those of you with us on Bloomberg TV and on YouTube, a live view of the staging that's been set up. Republican members are in the room, and the president is soon to speak. Joining us now for a closer look, Bloomberg's Megan Scully. I thought this was all going to be done at the Army-Navy game. We still haven't figured out the path. Is this the meeting that makes it happen, whether it's reconciliation, tax cuts, debt limit? How do you handle them all?
So Speaker Johnson says they're going to come up with a plan to get all of this solved during this retreat at Doral. The reality is they might end up leaving with concepts of a plan and not much else. Okay. There are so many different factions within this Republican caucus. Just minutes ago, we saw another red line from Ryan Zinke, who actually served as Interior Secretary in Trump's first administration, saying that he would vote against any bill that would involve the federal government selling federal lands. He is a congressman from Montana. There's lots of federal lands there. That just goes to show you how many different factions we have here, because, of course, we have the SALT folks and we have the deficit hawks, but then we have all of these other people in the middle with their own specific interests. And you're in a House where you can't lose more than a handful of votes. This is the narrowest majority we've seen in a long time. It's going to be hard to get this through.
Well, so that's the House busy over the next few days. The Senate will be busy as well, Megan, as there's still a bunch of confirmation hearings and controversial ones at that to get through this week. RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel. After Pete Hegseth, thanks to J.D. Vance, was able to be confirmed over the weekend, late Friday night. What are the prospects looking like for these three?
It's difficult to tell at this point. Trump certainly seems to be largely getting what he wants in terms of his cabinet, particularly after Matt Gaetz sort of went down before he even really became a nominee. But there are lingering questions specifically about Tulsi Gabbard and about RFK Jr. from both sides of the aisle. And I think that the hearings for those two nominees are going to prove pivotal. Particularly, I would say, for RFK Jr. I think that if he's able to thread the needle here on abortion, because he is for abortion rights, and pacify, some of the more conservative Senate Republicans, he will go a long way towards confirmation. At the same time, he might need to reach out to some Democrats, people like Cory Booker, for whom he has agreed on matters, particularly regarding food and nutrition, and and seeing if he can not offend anyone and maybe pick up some votes on the left. It remains to be seen. Tulsi Gabbard, I think, will be a wild card. There's a lot of concerns about her Syria trip in 2017.
All right, Bloomberg's Megan Scully. A lot to look forward to this week. Thank you so much. But next here on Balance of Power, we'll turn back to DeepSeek and the implications for U.S. policy on China and technology. Michelle Giuda, CEO of the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue, joins next in Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
There's no question that this could be a potential game changer.
It's a game changer for the Mag 7 stocks.
Tech has to be okay simply because it's such a large weight in the market. And if tech is not okay, the entire market goes.
We're all tied to these 7 stocks. And in particular, we're all tied to Nvidia.
It looks like the story is China is not as far back as what people thought. They are much closer.
Now China looks like a very viable competitor and a competitor that, perhaps might catch the ire of the Trump administration.
This has got to be a core concern of not just the Trump administration, but all the tech universe that has moved into the West Wing.
The U.S.-China trade wars and the restrictions on chips and things like that could get even more heated, which will bring more volatility to this market.
That's been the conversation today. A range of voices there on Bloomberg TV and radio on both the economic and political impact of DeepSeek. Certainly move the market. Here with more, Michelle Giuda, CEO at the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue. It's great to have you with us here, Michelle. I wonder your thoughts on this right now, if in fact this is the game changer that some are framing it to be, if China just owned the U.S. on AI, or if we're getting a little over our skis here today.
Well, it's not a game changer in the sense that we've known for quite a while that China wants to be the global leader in artificial intelligence. They've stated it publicly many, many times, and we know that they want to marshal all aspects of their society to do that. So there should be no surprises here. It's a game changer in the sense that all it should do is double down American efforts to move faster, smarter, and maybe more cheaply on how we innovate in artificial intelligence. And I think the Stargate project announced last week is a good example of how we're going to turbocharge our efforts. But the question for us is, when are our next 10 Stargates coming out, and what can we do to go on offense even faster?
Well, and if you're building out all that AI infrastructure in the U.S. and investing in fabs and that kind of thing, Michelle, it's also a question of whether you keep more of that in the U.S. If you expand, say, export controls, is that also what needs to happen here?
Export controls need to get a lot more effective at making sure that our most advanced technology doesn't go overseas. I think there's still some big question marks about DeepSeek and whether or not they used our most advanced chips, whether or not there were any subsidies behind this, whether they really did it for less than $6 million. And so there's still a lot to be answered in terms of what the company has said about itself. But let's assume all of that is true, which would be highly contrary to the Chinese playbook. But let's assume miracles happened, and that is the case. Either way, we need to make sure that in addition to a strong offense, we have a really strong defense. That means tighter export controls for countries and companies to make sure that our most advanced technology isn't fueling their military, isn't fueling their ability to dictate the values that define the most important technology of the 21st century.
Well, how much do the numbers need to change here? You mentioned this new initiative that Donald Trump rolled out with Sam Altman, with Oracle, of course, and SoftBank. That was a $100 billion investment that was announced almost a week ago now at the White House, and could be as high as $500 billion, according to Donald Trump. Are those outrageous numbers? Why are we spending all of that money if DeepSeek does this for $6 million?
Well, like I said, there's still a lot of questions about whether or not they really did it for $6 million. But if we assume that to be true, maybe the good news is that we can find ways to be more efficient with our spending. And so that $500 billion ultimately goes a lot farther than we had originally intended it. That would be really good news. But there's other things that we need to do at scale. We need to graduate more engineers in this country so we can compete with China. We graduated about less than 900,000 engineers in 2020 compared to China's 2 million. The Krach Institute here at Purdue is going to graduate more engineers than any other top university in the country. We need to do that at scale so that we are winning in the short term and then in the long term, because unless we have the engineers to build and design the data centers, to design more advanced AI, we're not going to be able to be the world capital of artificial intelligence.
Well, what kind of regulation does trying to lead the world in AI demand, Michelle? We saw David Sachs, the new AI and crypto czar at the White House today, saying that DeepSeek is evidence that Donald Trump did the right thing in rescinding the AI executive order under the Biden administration that put into place guardrails and kind of rules of the road, if you will. Does this need to be a hands-off approach to allow U.S. advancement in this technology?
It's a question of how much more can we innovate, not how much more can we regulate. The superpower of the United States is innovation and enterprise. We're not going to regulate our way to becoming the global capital of artificial intelligence. If you take a regulation-first approach, just look at what happens. You can look over at Europe, which now has to pay $800 billion a year to make up for its tech competitiveness. So innovation first has been how the United States wins. And here's where we need to unleash as much of our innovation, enterprise, private sector, getting our engineers to do what they do best in order to lead the world.
So what needs to come next from the hyperscalers you mentioned? There have been big questions about capital expenditures. Last week, Meta reached for a $60 billion investment. Is it time for a pause and a rethink on the money?
We should do anything but pause our investment in our build out of artificial intelligence. It's time to hit the gas pedal. It's time to accelerate. How much more can we do to innovate in artificial intelligence and make sure that there is max proliferation of trusted technologies from American companies and from allied companies so that we are leading the world and not China?
Just quickly, Michelle, we have a minute left here, but if TikTok was banned in the U.S. on national security grounds, should DeepSeek be banned also?
We'll find out. I think there's people digging into their privacy terms and whether or not they keep data, whether or not they track your keystrokes. It's in their privacy policy. But in the vein of TikTok, in the vein of Huawei, which has also been banned, it's worth taking a look at DeepSeek because we know the Chinese playbook on data security.
All right, Michelle Giuda, CEO of the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue. Thank you so much. And coming up, our conversation with Gregory Allen, director of the Wadhwani AI Center at CSIS. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and Radio.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and Radio. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington alongside Kaylee Lines. DeepSeek has raised new questions about how the market is looking at AI and the massive amounts of money being invested in developing the technology. On the early edition of Balance of Power, I spoke with an expert in this space, Gregory Allen, director of the Wadhwani AI Center at CSIS. More specifically, reaction we saw today from energy companies that stand to benefit from AI.
If you go back 10 years, how much was data centers as a share of the U.S. electrical grid demand? Yep. It was hardly anything. But at the exact same time that computer chips got more powerful, that algorithms got more efficient, suddenly data centers are actually a pretty reasonable chunk of the U.S. grid. Yeah. And now it's looking like they're going to consume a lot more. Mm-hmm. Well, increasing efficiency has already been a part of that story. An Nvidia chip today is literally 10,000 times more efficient than an Nvidia chip a decade or two ago. Yeah. And at the same time that they're getting more efficient, at the same time that you're using less energy per unit of computation, you're making the economic and the business case that much more attractive for every additional use case for that competition.
I have to admit, this all sounds pretty positive in the grand scheme. So let's get to this case specifically and why Wall Street is so freaked out. DeepSeek, we're told this happened with $6 million in funding. Is that possible? Is that true?
So it's which part of the story you want to say.
Okay.
This specific model training run, right? When you're training an AI model, how much computation did you use on that one run? Yes, that was $6 million worth of computation. But there's all the other model training runs that didn't work. Right? When DeepSeek says that's what it costs, they didn't say their entire computing costs for all of their research and development, for all the work that went into creating this model was $6 million. They said this one individual training run was $6 million. Another thing to note here is, part of the reason why everybody's so excited is this is a model that has reasoning capabilities. This is the advance that OpenAI came out with in the O1 series of models in September of last year. Well, it turns out what DeepSeek has proved is that upgrading a pretty decent base model, think like GPT-4, to a reasoning model, that is actually not as computationally intensive as had been understood widely in the press. But inside the big AI companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, they already knew all of this. They were already benefiting from all of this. Recall that Sam Altman said that O3, the most advanced category of model, the one that was blowing away benchmarks in December of 2024, he said the price of giving away that model usage, free, right? So costs are coming down for everyone, not just for DeepSeek. What DeepSeek is doing is replicating a series of research that American AI companies had already been benefiting from. They just weren't sharing it loudly and publicly.
You can find our full conversation with Gregory Allen, director of the Wadhwani AI Center at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, online or on the terminal. And as we consider this DeepSeek story, noteworthy, Joe, that we have not yet heard from President Trump.
Amazing.
On the matter. I do wonder if we will just moments from now, as he's expected to take the stage shortly at his resort in Doral, Florida, addressing the House Republican Conference, which, of course, is having their retreat there over the course of the next few days, trying to hammer out legislative strategy.
That's right. This is a grand arrival for Donald Trump at Doral with the membership waiting. They've been playing golf, having lunch, and talking to the speaker in advance of these remarks. I'll be very curious to see if DeepSeek comes up, whether we actually get a statement from the White House on this. Kaylee, because, of course, there are national security concerns. Are they scooping up emails, phone numbers of Americans? That brings us to TikTok. And, of course, Donald Trump has had an evolution on what to do with TikTok. This whole idea of divesting or seeing it banned. He wants to keep it alive despite these concerns. Maybe that'll color his opinion on this. Yeah, well, we certainly know his opinion on taxes. He'd like to see tax cuts made permanent that were implemented in 2017. He also would like to see, as he reiterated in Las Vegas this weekend, no tax on tips, on overtime. And I would imagine he's going to address the room in that regard as well. So as we look ahead to his remarks, we'll have more on tax policy with a member of the Ways and Means Committee. Democratic Congresswoman Gwen Moore of Wisconsin is next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
No tax on tips. No tax on tips. So if you're a restaurant worker, a server, a valet, a bellhop, a bartender, or one of my caddies, or any other worker who relies on tipped income, your tips will be 100% yours.
President Trump in Las Vegas on Saturday, doubling down on his pledge to end taxes on tips and overtime in a hotspot for hospitality workers. Trump is now at his Doral resort in Florida, meeting with House Republicans on the path forward for tax legislation. He's expected to speak just moments from now. House Speaker Mike Johnson is speaking now, as you can see on Bloomberg TV and on YouTube. And joining us now, as well as on radio for more, is Democratic Congresswoman Gwen Moore of Wisconsin. She's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee and the Tax Subcommittee within it. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here. As we consider what Donald Trump is about to put forward to Republicans, specifically under the presumption that it's just going to be the Republican majority that gets whatever tax package over the finish line, are there elements of it that you would sign up for, say, no tax on tips?
Well, just let me just say this. The overall approach to this tax package is to find a way to pay for $4.6 trillion in additional benefits for the wealthiest Americans and corporations. And that means not worrying about people's tips. That proposal seems to be so similar to what my colleague Stephen Horsford talked about. But the difference is that Donald Trump is not talking about raising the minimum wage for those workers from $2.13. The real issue in their lives in terms of having enough revenue. No, he's talking about cutting $2.5 trillion out of Medicaid. He's talking about ending the Social Services Block Grant Fund. He's talking about denying hospitals, including rural hospitals, monies for bad debt through Medicare. And he's doing this all so that they can amass enough resources to pay for the wealthiest Americans in the United States, to give them yet another tax cut. He's even talking about lowering the corporate tax cut down from the 21% where it is all the way down to 15%. And so this is just some way to have low-wage workers rallying around the president. No tax on tips. Well, you're getting tips for a wage as it is.
Mm-hmm. Congresswoman, Donald Trump just took the stage in Doral, and I'll just warn you in advance, we're going to be carrying his remarks, so I don't want to set you up to interrupt you, but they're playing some music, and he's kind of soaking up the moment here. As we prepare to listen to the president, is there anything that he could say? I know you as an optimistic person. Anything that he could say that would garner your interest in working with Republicans here? I guess we're going to go live to Doral now, Congresswoman. I'm sorry. This is Donald Trump live on Bloomberg.
Very big congratulations to our re-elected House Republican majority on your largest popular vote. Did you know that since 1928? That's a long time, Mike, right? That's a long time. But I especially want to thank our outstanding leadership team. Speaker Mike Johnson, we all know so well. He's doing great. Majority Leader Steve Scully, who's gone through so much. And he looks better today than he did 10 years ago. I don't know what's going on. Thank you very much, Steve. You look great. Majority Whip Tom Emmer. Tom, thank you. Great job. And House Conference Chair Lisa McClain. Lisa, thank you very much. Great job. Great job. Thanks as well to all of the incredible House members and staff for your tireless work on behalf of our country, along with Congressional Institute CEO Kelly Strickland. Thank you very much. Thank you. Kelly, thank you very much. So we have Kellyanne Conway. Nobody knows Kellyanne. Does anybody know? Where's Kellyanne? She's around. What? She's so good. She's a good person, too. She's a good person, too. And the mayor of Hialeah, I love this guy because he said, sir, we want to name a major boulevard after you. And he did it. Anybody that names a boulevard after me, I like him a lot. Esteban Bovo and Hialeah, mayor of Hialeah, thank you, wherever you may be. Esteban, where are you? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great honor, actually. A lot of people come back from Hialeah. They say, they just named a road after you. I said, that's okay. It's a beginning, right? It's a start. With the help of everyone in this room, we've just won the most epic, consequential political victory in American history, according to a lot. One of the major fake newspapers, so in this case it's not fake news, let's say, but they said it's the most consequential election victory in the last 129 years. I'm trying to figure out what that means, 120. Who was there 129 years ago? But it was a great one. At the presidential level, we won the popular vote for the first time of any Republican in decades. We swept all 7 swing states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada by very, very big margins, record-setting. And for the first time ever, all 50 states, did you know this? Shifted toward the Republican Party. We've never had that before. Nobody has, actually. It's never happened before. That's pretty good. You must be doing a good job, fellas. We won the largest number of African-American voters in Republican history, including 39% of black men a record by a lot. So that's really nice. Thank you. And we won more Hispanic American votes than any Republican ever. It's never won any, not even close. Look at that, Hispanic American. We made historic strides with youth, men, women, urban, suburban, and rural voters. And in a political earthquake, yeah, sit down, just enjoy it. What the hell, we're going to be here for a little while. But in a political earthquake, we won a wave of support from labor unions, including massive numbers of auto workers, which gave us Michigan as an example. Think of that. We won Michigan easily, and we did tremendous with the auto workers. And an overwhelming majority of the rank and file membership of the Teamsters. The Teamsters were great. They showed up in droves, and we won them by a lot. Together, we're forging a new political majority that's shattering and replacing Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal coalition, which dominated American politics for over 100 years. That's what we're doing. And what Mike said before, common sense. It is a little bit of common sense. Maybe it's a lot of common sense. Under our leadership, the Republican Party has become the proud voice of hardworking American citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. We become the party of the American dream and wealth creation for everyone, not just the rich. If we do our job over the next 21 months, not only will House Republicans be reelected and expand our majority in 2026, we will cement a national governing coalition that will preserve American freedom for generations to come. There has never been anything like what's happened in politics in the last few years. Never been anything like it. Everybody, people of religion, everybody seems to be with us. I don't know how anybody could even vote for the other side. In many cases, they don't, but they do get credit for it. You'll have to think about that. I've raised a lot of money for the next race that I assume I can't use for myself, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't know. I think I'm not allowed to run again. I'm not sure. Am I allowed to run again, Mike? I better not get you involved in that argument. No, we raised a lot of money, a tremendous amount, and our teletown halls are something that's very special that nobody else is able to even contemplate using. We've gotten a lot of people elected with those teletown halls. We have 25,000, 30,000 people on just in a congressional area, and they win easy. It works for Elvis, the Beatles, and it doesn't work for anyone else, but it works for Trump. And we would have tremendous crowds on those calls, and I think I'll bet we got 35, 40 people elected because of the town halls. But I did say to them, and I said, this is the greatest, the person that sort of has the rights to it, and he happens to be a great Republican. I said, this is the greatest invention. This thing is going to make a fortune. He said, no, it's not that good, actually, because it only works for you. He said, actually, sir, it only works for you because somebody else they're not picking up. So I'm honored to have that privilege, and I used it carefully. But we've done a lot of the teletown halls for people, and I don't think we've ever lost one, right? It's hard to lose one, even if you only get 5,000 or 6,000 people on a congressional race. But we've done them for states, we've done them for governors, and we've done them for senators. And we did a couple countrywide. I did a couple for myself countrywide. They're absolutely amazing. And we got the message out through that and lots of other means. We even got it out through TikTok. Has anyone ever heard of TikTok? I have a little bias toward TikTok right now, I have to tell you. So we won youth by the largest margin. No Republican, we generally don't win youth. We won by 36 points. Can you imagine that? And I think TikTok had something to do. So pardon me if I'm I became a little bit jaded toward TikTok, but we'll see what happens. We're going to have a lot of people bidding on it. And if we can save all that voice and all the jobs, and China won't be involved. You don't want China involved, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But over the past 7 days, my administration has been moving with urgency and historic speed to reverse every single disaster of the Biden administration. By the way, the guy was a disaster, okay? We want to be nice. And he's probably not listening right now because it's a little late. But, I don't want him to listen. I don't want to say it. I feel badly. I was, making the inauguration speech, and I'm saying all the bad things. And he's sitting like right here. I'm saying they were a horrible administration. They didn't know what they were doing. They were grossly incompetent. I got a guy sitting right next to me. It's not that easy to do, even though he didn't understand what I was saying. He really did. And deliver on the mandate that we've been given by the American people. In a single week, I've taken over 350 executive actions. We've signed 300, and who ever heard of that one? And as I said in my inaugural address, the American decline is over. It's over. The golden age of America has officially begun, and I think that's a good thing for us to talk about, the golden age and the American dream. I think it's a good thing because people haven't been talking that way for a long period of time. On day one, I directed every member of my cabinet to marshal all powers at their disposal to defeat inflation and bring down the cost of daily life, and we're going to do that. You're going to see it starting to happen when we get going with the energy. The energy is going to, brought everything up, it's going to bring everything down. I imposed a federal hiring freeze, a federal regulation freeze, a foreign aid freeze. A foreign aid freeze, isn't that nice? We get tired of giving massive amounts of money to countries that hate us, don't we? And I created the new Department of Government Efficiency, and I think it's going to be very meaningful. I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Scam, one of the great scams in history. Actually, isn't it 12 years up? They gave us 12 years to live, right? I think that we passed it, right? We're still around. Can you believe it? The person that really came up with it is a person that never even took a course on the environment, was a poor student, not a good student, didn't understand a lot. And she came up with this idea, and everybody all of a sudden started going. And then mainstream, important Democrat leaders were starting, they got sucked into it. And we've spent trillions of dollars on just like throwing it out the window. You could throw it out the window, you would have been better off. I withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord, and I canceled. It was so one-sided, we had obligations, but Russia didn't, China didn't, other countries didn't. We paid everything. We're going to lose $1 trillion over a short period of time on that. And we had to do everything. They didn't have to do anything. It was ridiculous. And I canceled the insane and very costly electric vehicle mandate. So you can buy a car of your choice. If you like gasoline, go have it. And if you like hybrids are doing well. You can have it, or you can buy an electric car. We like everything, but you have to have a right to buy everything. I withdrew from the World Health Organization, where we paid $500 million a year, and China paid just $39 million a year, despite a much larger population. How about that? So we're paying $500 million a year. China's paying $39 million a year. They have 1.4 billion people. We have, nobody knows what we have. So many people came across the border. Nobody has any idea. I used to say like 325, but we really don't know. But we're going to know soon. We're going to know. And I tell you, our people are doing Tom Homan and his staff are doing an incredible job getting the bad ones out. I declared a national energy emergency to unlock the liquid gold that's right under our feet, because we will drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill, baby, drill. It's going to bring down prices, and your energy costs are going to go way down, and that'll happen, I think, relatively quickly. I'm going to give fast environmental approval for anybody building a plant for electric generation, and anybody that invests more than $1 billion will get super rapid approval. Not that they have to wait for 9 years, 14 years, like I approved LNG plants in Louisiana. They were waiting for so many years. It wasn't Louisiana's fault. It was some people, they just wouldn't get them done. You've got a snail here, a tiny tree here, and I got it done in a matter of a few days. I actually got it done. It took them 14 years. I got it done in about 3 days. The people, as we called them, I'll never forget, I called them and I said, congratulations, you got your permit. What? They were so shell-shocked. They didn't know what the hell was happening. They're going to spend, and they spent about $16 billion on each plant, and they've been roaring since then. But we got them done in a matter of a few days. Over the past week, we've begun the largest deregulation campaign in history, far exceeding even the record-setting efforts in my first name. That was record-setting deregulation, and that was just as big as tax cuts as far as business and jobs were concerned, I'll tell you. I actually asked, it's interesting because I actually asked some of the biggest businessmen in the country, I said, let me ask you, have you had the choice between the big tax cuts? We cut it from 40% to 21%. We're going to cut it further. But we cut it down to 20. Everybody said that would be impossible. The people on the stage helped us with that one a lot. But I said, if you had your choice of that or the big deregulation cuts, what would you take? These are the guys that run the big companies, the big oil companies, the big companies of every kind. I said, would you take the big tax cut or the big cut in regulations? And I've never had anybody said they'll take the tax cut. They took the regulation cut. I'll bet I asked that question 100 times to 100 of the biggest people. They always, Tom, they always said, sir, we'll take the regulation cut. You opened us up. You let us create all these jobs that we've all seen happen. So it was even bigger than the big tax cut. I also signed an order to end the weaponization of our government against the American people and investigate all abuses of power. And I stopped government censorship once and for all, and we brought back free speech to America. That's what happened. We're going to bring it back. We didn't have free speech. We didn't have free speech. I mean, I was investigated more than any human being in history. Alphonse Capone was a baby. Now, this was a serious killer, Scarface. You've all heard of Scarface. He had a scar for a reason. He didn't play games, but he was Scarface. Of course, nobody ever called him Scarface to his face. They said, Al, you look great today. Guy had a scar that was like 2 inches thick that ran from here to here. And they say, Al, you look fantastic. But Scarface was not investigated as much as your president was investigated. And it turned out to be a positive thing for me. Can you believe it? It turned out to be, we got a lot of votes. I think we got a lot of votes because they saw it was weaponization. It was a fight against a political opponent. I ordered the end to all of the lawless diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense policies across the government and all across the private sector and the military. We got it. We're getting it out, and we've gotten it out pretty much. We did that in 1 week, and it wasn't that easy, but everybody wanted it. People that were strongly in favor of it, I thought, called me and said, thank God you got rid of that. That was so bad. It was so bad we hated it. We abolished 60 years of prejudice and hatred with the signing of one order, all approved by the Supreme Court of the United States. It was a big thing, and the United States has become a meritocracy again. We are a country that's based now on merit for success. Merit. If you're good at what you do, you're going to go places. I made it and who would have thought that was going to happen? We didn't even talk about that one because I figured that one was going to be toughest to get. And so we are now, if you do a meritorious job, if you do something where you're just outstanding, you advance, and that's what it's about. It's about competition, and it's about a lot of things, and the other becomes a very dangerous plateau. We were on that plateau too long, and it's one of the reasons that you saw very bad things happening with our country. I made it the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female. Gee, that was a tough one. That was a tough one. Some of these people say like 7 genders. I'm trying to say, go and name them. They got some weird stuff going on. No, we have 2 genders. I renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, and we are restoring the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley in Alaska in honor of the incredible people of the state of Ohio who loved their governor and loved the man that became president. He was the big Tariff sheriff, they used to call him, and made a lot of money. Our country became very rich, and when he was assassinated, Teddy Roosevelt became president, and he spent all of that money that was made from tariffs. The money was so enormous, and they built the thing called the Panama Canal. You might have read about this lately. It's become a hot subject because China essentially has taken it over, and we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let that happen. It was the biggest investment to this day ever made by the country. In other words, if you bring it up to modern day numbers, we spent money that we've never spent anything so much. We've never had so many people die. 38,000 people died building the Panama Canal 110 years ago. And they gave it away for $1. It's also one of the most profitable things ever built. You know, ships are lined up back to Florida trying to get through. We're not going to let that happen. Wasn't the deal. We didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, sort of, I guess.
but they haven't behaved properly. Perhaps most importantly, I declared a national emergency to stop the invasion of our southern border. We're going to stop that invasion. We've already done it. And today in Tijuana, you probably saw, I got a call from Tom Homan and some of the people. They said, sir, it's unbelievable. There is nobody. You have this huge area. It's a gathering area. It's always been packed with these people. What they did to our country is so unbelievable. That they could do this to our country is so horrible. But he said, there's nobody there. And then they actually put it on television. I got to see it. And there was literally not one person, this vast area where people stay there all day long and they just walk right into our country. They just unchecked, no way, no check-in for IDs like voter ID. They don't want voter ID because they want to cheat. They wanted these people to come in because they want to cheat too. But who could allow this to happen? But there wasn't one person standing in this massive an area that's like 5 football fields that was packed for years under these horrible people that wanted to kill our country. We halted all illegal entry. We have successfully ended catch and release, and we're deporting 100% of all new trespassers apprehended at the border, and nobody's coming in, and nobody's coming now because they know they're not going to be able to come in. So we've really stopped something that was very, very serious. But we have to get the bad ones out. We have many murderers, many very bad people in our country that they've allowed because of a ridiculous, actually stupid, open border policy. I've also deployed troops to the border, and for the first time in history, we're locating and loading illegal aliens into military aircraft and flying them back to the places from which they came. And very importantly, America is respected again. We're respected again. Isn't that nice? You know, after years of laughing at us like we're stupid people. And as you saw yesterday, we've made it clear to every country that they will be taking back our people that we're sending out, the criminals, the illegal aliens coming from their countries. We're taking them back, and they're going to take them back fast. And if they don't, they'll pay a very high economic price, and we're going to immediately install massive tariffs. It'll be placed on them and other sanctions, but the tariffs, I told you, most beautiful word in the dictionary. I also told you that I said that the first time, and I got just absolutely decimated by the fake news, you know. I said, it's the most beautiful word, and the fake news said, what about religion? What about God? What about love? So now I say it's the 4th most favorite word in the dictionary. It's God, love, it's all these other things, but I say number 4, but God, love, religion, tariff, 4th. Another couple of weeks, it'll be like 10. Hopefully it's going to stay in the top 10, but the fake news.
President Trump speaking at Doral, his club in Miami, to House Republican members on the stage. If you're with us here on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube, you might have seen the Speaker of the House on one side, Steve Scalise on the other. Donald Trump kind of riffing through, at this point, some policy ideas and some other ideas as he comes off the script a bit. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington alongside Kayleigh Lines. The Monday edition of Balance of Power. And Kayleigh, we have breaking news from the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, knowing, of course, the Senate today was set to vote on Donald Trump's pick to be Treasury Secretary.
Yeah, and indeed, that selection, Scott Bessent, has enough votes as we speak to be confirmed as Treasury Secretary. This is not all too surprising. His odds of confirmation were seen as very, very positive. He was one of the more bipartisan, supported on a bipartisan basis. But again, Scott Bessent does have the votes to be confirmed as Treasury Secretary. That vote is still ongoing, but he, as Treasury Secretary, will be charged with implementing some of the very policies Donald Trump is speaking about here. Tariffs, yes, and we do expect at some point he's going to come around to taxes as he speaks to the Republican conference on the way forward on legislation.
Sean Duffy likely to be the next to be confirmed. That would be Transportation Secretary. And Kayleigh, we have a raft of confirmation hearings later this week. Kash Patel, RFK Jr., and Tulsi Gabbard that will be following very closely. Check out the Washington Edition newsletter, and we'll meet you back here tomorrow on Bloomberg TV and radio.